spook easily startled.
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
I want to play a game.
The Jigsaw Killer. Only speaking, he's not really a murderer. He never killed anyone.
Dr. Gordon, your aim in this game is to kill Adam. If you do not, then Diana will die.
He finds ways for his victims to kill themselves. He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet.
He helped me.
Right now, you are breathing in a deadly nerve agent. The only way out is to find an antidote. One is inside the safe. You all possess the combination in the back of your mind.
You did this.
Open the door! There's nowhere to go! Where is he? Oh, yes. There will be blood. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive. Not anymore. Hello, America. Do you want to play a game? Live or die. Make your choice.
And welcome to another edition of What's in the Podcast. And today we are doing yet another edition of Legacies of Fear, the segment where we just go through the complete and comprehensive history of a franchise. But this one is going to be a biggie. We are going for the long haul. And I decided to do this because, well, it's been 20 years since the first installment of this particular franchise has graced our, or I'd say lubricated our screens with blood, gore, and viscera. Or not. You know, the first one was kind of subdued. But nevertheless, this year marks the 20th anniversary of Saw. And most of the time I'd say, oh crap, shit, I feel old. But this is actually the one time where I'm going, God damn, this franchise has 10 movies in 20 years. That's actually kind of impressive. And in talking about this franchise, there's literally only one person who came to my mind when I repeat, had to talk about this. And this is a friend who I met at Dragon Con. She is, for me, the Amanda Young cosplayer. Who every time a new variation came out, no matter how elaborate and no matter how grotesque, she nailed it. Immediately when I started falling in love with this franchise, she was the only one who I was like, I had to tell you, I'm in love with this franchise. Introduced her enough. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I am very honored that I'm the person you think of for this kind of discussion.
Well, I would even say you were kind of a major, kind of push for me to want to finally get it, because at the time I met you, I'd only seen the first film, and anyone who has listened to me on the podcast found out in real time I was gradually falling in love with it, because Saw 10 was coming out and I was like, I need to finally pull the trigger on these. I saw how much love for it that you were putting through just in sheer cosplay form, to the point, pun intended, where for anyone who follows you on Instagram, your Saw 2 Amanda Young with all the syringes poking out of you is a masterwork.
I appreciate that. That's like all of my cosplays, that is me winging it. I've never delved into makeup work before or latex or anything like that. And I really wanted to cosplay her from 2 because it's my favorite version of her, and I don't see anybody else doing it. If you ever see an Amanda cosplayer, it's always the head trap, which, you know, that varies in level of quality as well. But I figured if I'm going to play this character, I want to play all of her characters, and I want to do something that not a lot of people expect from her. So I figured it out as I went.
And actually, you'll be happy to know I still have this guy.
Nice, very cool. That was a limited edition.
Yeah, for those listening at home, one thing that she does, which is awesome, she hands out these little pieces of flesh with that say cherish your life with your
Mhm.
Instagram handle as Amanda Young on there. I just gave that
Easy Amanda Young, yeah.
easy Amanda Young.
Or AZ, so it's Arizona.
Oh, Arizona.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But my love for Saw, to understand the full extent of how rapidly I fell in love with it, I only just got this guy.
Ooh,
Just
very cool.
yeah, I just got a
Nice.
tattoo of a section of my own flesh peeled off. And the tattoo artist was excited. They were like, oh my God, I love gore. So since this is your first time on What's in the Podcast, we do have a tradition. Go ahead and tell us your origin story. Overall, what got you into horror?
I think it goes back to like child horror. So like my big thing was Are You Afraid of the Dark and the Beetlejuice cartoons and Goosebumps. I watched stuff like that when I was a kid because as a kid there's not a lot out there that in my opinion like will stimulate your mind. You know, it's kids content. So when I found horror, it was the first thing that like, you know, it got me scared, it got me thinking, it could disturb me as a child. That's different. So it was just something that constantly fascinated me. You know, I was into Adam's Family and all that kind of stuff. And then I started to get into video games and the same thing. I would gravitate towards psychological horror games because it was just the only genre out there that I felt was so different. So it just kind of traveled with me like that.
Fantastic. And actually, you're the first one I've encountered who started off on that level with stuff like Are You Afraid of the Dark and just kind of gradually built from there. In fact, I'm going to be recording with some friends soon talking about like gateway horror from a young age. You know, so, and that's actually a really cool thing to start out with. I mean, even I myself, even before I fell in love with horror, I was always kind of allured by it with yeah, I was a lightweight, but Goosebumps was a big one for me. I mean, though I did watch the edited for television Tales from the Crypt episodes when they syndicated on Fox.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so none of the good stuff, but still good stuff was in it. People already know about my intro to Saw, but let's go ahead and talk about yours. Like, where did your love affair with Saw begin?
So my first job was at a movie theater, and I really just remember seeing the trailer for the first one. I was probably working at the theater. I think I was 16 when it came out. And the trailer, it was just the most unique horror concept I had ever seen. Because it was the whole trap thing and the fact that it was kind of more of an indie movie, really on a budget, but they managed to make the trailer just look so enticing. And then when it came out, of course, I got to see all the promotional stuff of a movie theater. So I saw we had the standee of the cover, so Amanda and the Trap in my lobby that I got to look at every day. And I would just take my breaks and go see the movie in pieces. But then when I finally got to see the whole thing, just as everybody knows, that twist ending just hits
Yeah.
you. It hits you like a freight train.
Mhm.
And if from there I was like, I want the pig mask and I want to make the trap and I want to and I want more of this, you know, and then just every year they gave us more and more and more.
Yeah,
Um,
and yeah, that was the wild thing. In fact, it
mhm.
got to the point where TV spots just simply said, "If it's Halloween, it must be Saw."
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
like for a good clean 6 years, we got a Saw movie like every year after the first one, and
Yeah.
that kind of output is very unique. I mean, sure, you could argue varying degrees of quality, but ultimately that seems incidental for a franchise that, as many enthusiasts have labeled it, as a big, glamorous, gory soap opera. I
Yeah.
think it's the best way to do it. And like any soap opera, the presentation is overly melodramatic, as is the acting, and the plots can best be described as absurdly labyrinthine
Mhm.
to the point of being nonsensical, but highly entertaining because of how ridiculously far they take it. I mean, for a man who's convalescing with cancer,
Mhm.
I'm impressed that he's able to do these kind of elaborate traps.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then I guess that's why they were starting to be like, okay, well, how is he doing all this? Well, he's got friends and they're helping him
Yeah,
and they're making him.
exactly. So, given the fact that there are 10 currently counting, as of today of recording, there are currently 10 installments of the franchise. We have one more that was supposed to come out this year,
Mhm.
but got pushed back to next year, which I'm okay with. Gives them more time to develop it.
Sure.
But so we are typically with Legacies of Fear, we do one episode per movie. But given the grandiose nature of this franchise, we will go ahead and kind of section each one into particular spots. So we will start with Saw. For this episode, we'll start with Saws 1 through 3, or as I'm sure you're totally cool with calling it, the Amanda Young saga.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but we'll try our best to try to keep it organized, focused. I mean, of course, we have to really talk about the big story of the first film and how that came to be. So, to start, give us a brief synopsis of the first Saw movie.
So I think I would call the first Saw movie much like Spiral later down the road. I think it's more of a detective movie than it was a straight up gore fest horror movie that it became. It was nobody knows who the killer is, but um there's a known killer on the loose who's doing this thing where he's putting people in traps. Um and that's where we find the first two characters, which, I mean, like I said, part of the trailer was seeing the fact that this whole movie is about two guys in a bathroom who are chained up and they can't leave, and figuring out what they're supposed to do and finding clues. It's almost like an escape room, what escape rooms became.
Yeah, actually, I've heard from some people saying that Saw may have actually inspired escape rooms.
Yeah, and there is one in Vegas that I've got to
I,
go see.
I have friends who have been in the Saw escape room, and they
Oh, so
said,
jealous.
yeah, so am I. And they actually said it's basically about as close to the Saw experience as they ever in real life ever want to be in.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, the hilarious thing about watching a Saw movie for me and is always hearing about people going like, "No, I'm fucked." Like if someone says, "If you're in that particular trap, do you think you're going to make it out alive?" And I'm like going,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I don't
It depends on
know."
the trap, honestly.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I mean, and also depending on who's building the traps, because depending on who
Hmm.
the apprentice is, they might fuck you over.
Yeah.
They might fuck you, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So yeah, the first Saw
Mhm.
was pretty much the big breakout of James Wan and Lee Winnell.
Mhm.
I didn't know this, but James Wan I think is a New Zealander, I think, or
Yeah.
is yeah, and and both of them had this script idea, and I think they right out of film school they submitted the script, and a producer got a hold of that script and said, "This is freaking awesome. Make a short film as a proof of concept." So they made a short film, and I believe that short film was the reverse bear trap sequence, like
Yeah.
all that. And just from
Mhm.
the merit of that alone, they were able to net a paltry, but in horror movie terms, pretty damn decent $1 million budget.
Yeah.
But they still landed some pretty sweet actors for the movie. They got freaking Carrie Elways and Danny Glover. And while he was kind of more of a noted character actor. Tobin Bell, you know, I think someone joked. They said, "Dude spends the entire movie lying flat on the ground,
Mhm.
and just by standing up became a horror icon."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We are going to get into full spoilers on these, everybody. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you have been warned. Most of the Saw movies you can find littered all throughout, so all around the streaming services. So definitely check them out and come back here when you're ready. So let's go ahead and get into the big thing. When Jigsaw rose from the bloody ground, what was your first response to that?
Ooh, I mean, I was 16 at the time. But unlike some people who will claim, "Oh, I knew it was him the whole time." No, I
Right.
never knew it was him. I never would have guessed it was the dead guy on the ground because they never alluded that it could have been him. And you didn't
Yeah.
know this franchise at the time, so you didn't even know like a massive twist was even coming like that. I don't even think anybody thought it was that kind of movie. They were just like, "Oh, it's Zepp, he's the guy who's running this whole show. It's just another one of these like, oh, he's captivated people and he's the one watching them." But it's like, no, even he's a victim in
Yeah.
the end, and they never even alluded that it could have been that kind of issue. So
Yeah.
no, I was blown away. I think everybody in the theater was.
And it's so funny because they do tease you, and there's so many subtleties telling you that you should have been paying attention to this guy
Mhm.
bedridden hospital, particularly, and according to trivia, and I'd have to go back and watch it again, if you look hard at the nightstand next to his bed, apparently there's a sketch of the reverse bear trap
Hmm.
right next to it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it's so tiny and so minute that you just don't really notice it. And you're too busy just when Zepp goes, "Oh, his name's John. He's a very he's a very fascinating man," is like going,
Hmm.
okay.
Like, why
So
are you so into him?
exactly.
Yeah.
You're so fixated on Zepp being creepy
Hmm.
that you don't really think about the unconscious man lying in the
Right.
lying on the bed.
No, why
Uh,
would you?
yeah, why would you? Why would you? And especially when midway through the movie they reveal Zepp, and you're seeing Zepp going through all the elaborate means, watching everybody,
Mhm.
doing everything like that. The movie takes its really invests its time into making you think it's Zepp
Right.
the entire go around. So,
Biggest red herring ever.
oh yeah,
Even the theme being called Hello Zep. Like,
oh yeah. Okay, I gotta ask, like every time you hear that theme fire up, do you just get a little giggly?
oh yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that when I first saw the movie, I was like, this movie has the best horror movie soundtrack I've ever heard in my life. Like
Mhm.
I downloaded it off of what LimeWire. I had to listen to it because I was like, it's just such a banger, man.
Yeah, and this is one of those times where when someone says something's formulaic, I'm like going good because the formula still works. So
Mhm.
every time that theme starts playing,
Oh,
immediately
you
at
know
the
it's
end of
Saw.
the yeah, at the end of it, and all of a sudden they do a big old montage reflecting on
Yeah.
everything that we've seen before,
Hmm.
and then that's the filmmakers going, if we played you and you should have been paying attention to all these little things
Hmm. Hmm.
all the way
Yeah.
throughout.
And that was another thing that wanted to bring up is the formula was created by Saw with the whole we're going to recap the whole movie in fast session and show you the things that you missed and spinning camera angles and the lighting is all green and yellow and it's like there's a lot of things that Saw made up that now other horror movies try to copy and it all
Exactly.
started with that first movie.
All started with two guys chained up in a filthy ass bathroom.
Hmm.
And the two people in question, Dr. Lawrence Gordon and Lee Winnell's character Adam, trying to go back in my brain to think if there's any other movie that had a narrative structure like this. And I'm really drawing a blank right now.
Not before.
Yeah, and it seems like now a lot nowadays I see more trying to be for
Hmm.
there's a kind of level of hypocrisy. It's like for so many people who voice disdain for Saw, they even if they don't know it or not, are trying to make movies that are following the
Yeah.
patterns that Saw kind of created just by
Yeah.
virtue of the fact that we are starting with a ton of questions. Who are these guys? Why are they here? Why are they chained up?
Hmm.
Who is doing this to them? And oh fuck, there's a bloody dead body on the damn floor.
Yeah.
And it's and that's a big old hook. Now, a hook so powerful that apparently this was going to be a straight to video, but because of positive audience response, they were like, nope, it's going to the theater.
Hmm.
It's going
Yeah, I
to
think they brought it to some film festivals, and the film festivals just lost their minds over it, which they should have.
Mhm. Absolutely. So when you were going through it for that very during that first go around, like what was racing through your head, like what kind of theories were going through as to why these two were in this room together.
Well, I mean, they kind of start talking about it as the movie goes on. Like, Adam's not a very good guy, Gordon's not a very good guy. There's reasons why they're both here. Um, but like the whole like Ada's a photographer that's been hired to stalk people who are cheating on their wives and things like that. It's like, okay, so then if he was hired by this killer, then why is he also here? And then there's like, okay, there's definitely like a moral reasoning why this killer did this, put these
Mm,
people here. And as it talks about the other subjects too, it'll go into like the small stories of the other victims of Jigsaw and be like they all had something about them that was flawed and he was trying to teach them some kind of lesson.
mm. And yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to the other hot topic about Jigsaw himself, his philosophy.
Mhm.
Uh, of course, you have people always going like, technically speaking, he never really murdered anybody.
They love saying that. Yeah.
They love saying
Putting
that.
people in a trap isn't illegal. Like, oh God, no, it is.
Yeah, apparently this everything Jigsaw does still technically counts as second degree murder. It's still,
Mhm.
if you're putting someone in a position where you know that they could potentially die and they die, that's technically
Mhm.
second degree murder. So yeah, it's kind of a, but then again, John Kramer is a master of many things. I'm pretty sure the law is not one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it never stops him, and it kind of,
Yeah.
as the movies go on, you sort of start to see that he has a very a very God complex about him. He kind of knows everybody's movements 5 steps ahead, and he knows how to get away with it, even if it is illegal.
And more often than not, even though there's so many ways his plans could go wrong, somehow, some way, the plans always,
Yeah, and he always
always,
knew. He
yeah.
always knew what was going to happen.
And it's, and I think you just get so caught up in how confident and charismatic and just how dedicated he is to his cause that you kind of just want him to succeed just by merit of the fact that he puts effort into it.
Mhm.
You gotta applaud that effort.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
Like,
definitely bring it up in the latest movie. He becomes more of a hero than the villain, but that was more of
yeah.
like, I think, more fan service.
Oh, it could be whatever it wants to at that point. After 9 movies in, it could be whatever the hell it wants. I'd say for all the great horror icons, I think the major thing that helps and the thing that kind of makes them the icons is the capacity for us as the audience to, as much as we do want to invest in the protagonists or the good guy characters or the ones we focus on, there's a little demon in us that's constantly going,
Oh yeah,
get him.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
From what I mean, from what I have discovered is I love villains because even in comic books, they're more interesting than the heroes. Their backstories are more traumatic, or it's like there's a reason why they're evil. So it's like these characters are all very broken. They all have their own traumatic backstories, and it's what created them. And I think that's fascinating.
and though, yeah, and to John Kramer's credit, as we'll definitely get into as we progress, he's definitely one who life pretty consistently shit on,
Hmm.
as we
Yeah,
discovered
he
throughout.
and Amanda, yeah.
Yeah, he had a pretty damn raw deal. At him, Amanda, I, they all definitely had some raw deal, and you totally understand why they would actually. I'll give it this. Even the guy from Jigsaw had a pretty raw deal too. So
Yeah.
the only one you're just like going, "Fuck you," is Hoffman.
Yeah, yeah, I know he had his story with his sister, but I was like, dude, Hoffman, you're just an
Yeah.
a-hole.
Oh, especially now. Especially now. I'm just grr, bastard. So
By the way, I just got to meet the actor. He's lovely.
yeah, I saw that you met Costas Mandalore.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm really excited. Spookala, Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, and
I'm so
Costas.
fucking jealous that you guys get all three of them.
I I was totally good. Well, I was like, I gotta jump on Tobin as fast as possible. I mean, dude's,
Yeah.
granted he looks amazing for 80, but still, it's like
Yeah,
gotta
you
jump
don't
on
know. You
that.
don't know how much longer he's gonna be going to these cons, though. It takes a lot out of him, and I get that.
Yeah, well, hell, I mean, it must have taken a lot of him to out of him to film Saw.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But
why I was like, they can push 11, but they can only push it so far. Like, he doesn't
yeah,
have many years left in him to do this.
Tobin Bell, thinking about him still playing Jigsaw after 20 years, it kind of takes me to that amazing scene in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire where Winston says to Ray, "These are supposed to be our golden years. This is supposed, yeah, we were supposed to be, we're getting too old for this." And then Ray just simply says, "I can't picture a better way to spend my golden years."
Yeah, no, no kidding. Like, this is your legacy, and if you like doing it, do it forever.
Exactly,
I get that.
and very clearly he does.
Hmm.
Because whereas we don't really get a chance to see the full length and breadth of what Tobin Bell can do in the first film, we definitely can. I mean, actually, he's center stage in the second one when that one comes around. Well, for Saw 1, that was a very truncated production. Actually, one cool thing of production on that, everything involving Gordon and Adam was all filmed in sequence. They actually did that in chronological order. And though it doesn't appear it, Danny Glover only had 2 days of filming.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that makes sense. They cram a lot. Like I said, most of my knowledge on Saw is the backstory of Amanda and then the actress. That whole scene was one day. So it
Yeah,
seemed like they knew how to cram a lot into a short
yeah.
space because
Well,
they had to.
she only filmed for a day, and
Yeah.
apparently she was filming for with like 104 fever.
Yeah, she was sick. And that worked with her character because she's like, I need to look miserable and I'm miserable. So,
Yeah,
so
and we very closely did not get her in the movie, but she
yeah,
said,
I was just gonna mention they tried to get her and she said no at first because she was, fresh out of a divorce and she was coming from Becker, which if you've never seen the show Becker, it's a stark opposite character to Amanda. If you ever
"Mm,
want to see her acting ability, the character she plays in Becker will make your head explode.
wasn't that the Ted Danson sitcom?"
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's where I knew that name. Yeah, I know James Wan and Lee Winnell wanted her because
Mm,
because she played the woefully underrated heroine Meg Penny in The
yeah.
Blob.
Hmm.
Woefully underrated. Like,
Yeah.
you never think you're going to see a cheerleader character pick up an AR-15 and just try to wail on a big old gelatinous ass, but man, does she do it.
Oh yeah.
Or man, does she do it. Damn it.
Hey,
Hey.
this guy. But yeah,
And-
so she said no thanks at first, and they were like, "Well, let me show you the reverse bear trap scene that we have filmed."
yeah.
And she just took her seeing it once, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that." And she to this day is like, "Thank God I did," because while she did some stuff, she's been acting since she was 8.
Mhm.
Nobody really knew her name before Saw, and even now, people don't really like who's Shawnee Smith, like girl from Saw. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, you
So it's
better,
like
yeah, you better know Shawnee Smith.
you better know Shawnee Smith, like Amanda from Saw,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
without that convincing, she was like, yeah, I could have. And now she's such a I'm gonna launch into some fangirl stuff real quick. She's on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, and she basically is like a mom figure to all of her fans because we're all young women, and she loves the fact that Amanda is such an advocate for young struggling women.
Mhm.
She calls us all the tribe of Amanda, which is cute, but she loves being like a mom figure to all of us, which it's so lovely.
Mhm. And then going actually as the ultimate transition to Saw 2, let's kind of focus on Amanda
Mhm.
in general. I mean, this is a character who kicked off, yeah, as we even find out later on, she's someone who has been living rough.
Yeah.
And what do you think it was about that moment, surviving the reverse bear trap, that had her basically convert and just want to follow John Kramer? What do you think it was that?
So I think it's a couple of things, and I was going to mention one of the points is that we'll find out in actually deleted scenes that from the get-go, Amanda's life was miserable. She had a father who was abusive. He was, as said in a deleted scene from X, he was a criminal, he was a drug addict, and he molested kids.
Mm,
So she never had a father figure. Another deleted scene in 3, I don't know why they keep deleting this information because it's kind of important to why
yeah,
she attaches herself to John, is that he used to lock her in a room under the stairs when she was a kid and never let her go. And it's it Saw 1, the scene doesn't explain a lot about who she is. Like even in the instructional video, it doesn't really explain why she's there. Um, they mention after, like when Tap's talking to her, he says, "You're a drug addict. Do you think that's why he chose you?" And she said the iconic line, "He helped me."
mm,
And they never thought that line was going to translate into her being a huge part of the franchise, but they heard it back and they were like, so we have to put her in 2, and we have to put her on his side. Because yeah, she we learn in 2 that she was wrongfully arrested
yeah,
for drug possession, and then she got addicted to drugs in jail, which is very backwards. And then once she was released, she overdosed, and then she didn't learn her lesson and she kept doing it. And
yeah,
that's why John attached himself to her because she wasn't cherishing her life. And then it took seeing her death and fighting for her life to realize that she should cherish her life. So his message resonated with her really well because probably for the first time in her miserable life, somebody wanted to give her a second chance. And it was through this tough love, the toughest of love,
yeah, yeah.
that she got the second chance, but she survived and he let her go. And then
Yeah.
she got off drugs and realized that this message makes sense to me. So I
Hmm.
think it was just a combination of needing a father figure and needing a second chance and getting it through the scariest way possible. It also
Exactly.
just broke her brain.
It's kind of a baptism of fire concept. It's
Hmm.
the idea of, and even though, yeah, you could poke holes in John Kramer's philosophy as much as you want,
Yeah.
but there is that purity of the fact of when someone is staring death in the face, uh, like you kind of see their true nature, like
Hmm.
the true nature of what this person will be, what they will do to survive,
Yeah.
how badly do they want to cling on to life. Because and for all the cynics looking out, or looking in, the Saw franchise is totally aware of the hypocrisies of the philosophy. There are moments in
Hmm.
the series consistently where someone's going, or actually a great one is someone diced off their arm screaming, like, what am I supposed to learn from this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there are a couple of victims where it was like they were sort of pawns. Like I still don't know who the cellmate was in Amanda's game. Like who was that guy and why did he deserve to die? We have no idea. I don't think
Yeah,
they ever explained who he was.
that would be kind of cool. Maybe in Saw 11 we finally get that
I'm
explanation.
I'm waiting for them to eventually explain who
It-
that guy
it-
was and why he didn't have a chance to survive because he was immobile. Like
yeah,
your whole point in this game is to die if she kills
yeah.
you.
Actually, it'd be kind of awesome if maybe like at some point we see a flashback of that guy himself was in his own personal trap,
Right.
lost, and was left immobilized.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on them to
That'd
to
be,
make to close that circle to be like, tell me who that guy was, because that wasn't fair. Why was he unable to do anything?
yeah, that's my okay. That's my head headcanon. I think that's the head headcanon we can both. I take it if you want, but I think that's what it is. He had his own
He had
trap.
to. Yeah, he had to
He
have
had his
lost
own
his own
trap.
game.
Yeah, and he lost his game.
There we go. That's fair now.
Yeah. I think we'll take it like that. So, so obviously, despite the fact that she was obviously, yay, he saved me.
Hmm.
When we go into Saw 2, obviously at this point we didn't know that Amanda was going to be the disciple. We were
Right.
so take yourself back to when you first watched it. Unfortunately for me, I had watched all of Dead Meat's kill counts on this, so unfortunately I got spoiled on it a long time ago. But from what it sounds of it, you got to see it fresh.
Hmm.
So take us back to when you were watching Saw 2. Were you shocked to see Amanda all of a sudden show? Actually, go ahead before we get into that. Go ahead and give us a brief synopsis of Saw 2.
So Saw 2, I think some people call like the black sheep of the franchise with how they filmed it. Because it wasn't supposed to be a Saw movie. This was just supposed to be
That's
another
right.
horror movie. And
Hmm.
then they decided let's just make it Saw 2. So deviating from the first movie quite a bit, it takes place in a house, a whole house, and it's a group of people instead of just the two guys, and they can move around. They all have a criminal history. They all have stuff in common. But among them is a kid. He's like 16, I think, at the time. Daniel is.
Hmm.
And the kid, which they will find out by the end, is the son of the cop that put them all away wrongfully, including Amanda. That is Eric Matthews, the corrupt detective.
Late
Now
night
they're
amusement
all,
park.
yeah, yeah. So the movie has multiple games running at the same time. You have the group of people in the house trying to figure out how to get out, and then you have the detective himself going after Jigsaw because now we know what he looks like. He's got a lead on him. He goes and finds where he's staying, and Jigsaw is worse for wear now because the cancer is riddling him. Unable to stand. He's in a wheelchair. He's on oxygen, and I think that had to raise some questions of how is he running this whole game by himself if he's, unable to even get out of the wheelchair.
Mhm.
So I think people were starting to be like, there's got to be other apprentices, there's got to be other people helping him out, but I don't know if right away anybody, maybe some people thought, well, it has to be Amanda because she's the only one who's done this before. Um, but yeah, so they all wake up one by one, Amanda's among them, and this is my favorite Saw movie. So
And you know what? You're not alone on that. It's funny that you say it's a black. Well, I get what you mean by black sheep on this because you're right. This was First off, it was the big breakout of Darren Lynn Bousman. He did write this as a spec script for another idea, but because of the relative similarities to Saw, Lee Winnell stepped in and was able to help adapt it to the world of Saw. And obviously a very lucrative partnership happened because Darren Lynn Bousman took to it like crazy and ended up directing directed 3 more installments of the franchise afterwards. So turned out to be a good fit. But I'm with you. I actually, as much as I love Saw 10, Saw 2 is actually, to me, my favorite of the franchise because I feel like it's the one that perfectly in a way, it's kind of like the Goldfinger of the franchise, where it perfectly has all the traits that we know and love about it, and really kind of is. It feels like the franchise really took its form there, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that we do get to see more of John Kramer. We actually do get a better vibe of what he is as a character, and yeah, we do get to see more of Amanda. And one thing that is different, especially from 1 to 2. The kills in Saw 1, the majority of them are posthumous. You actually don't see them most of them as they're happening. Most of them you actually just see the aftermath where the body, with the body, or you're seeing them prior to it when they're still trying to go through the trap. But it's a relatively blood. I'm not gonna say bloodless, but it's definitely one that's. I always tell people, like, you can at least watch the first one because it's a lot easier to watch than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, that's why I said it was more of a detective movie than a horror movie, because you're right. It's detectives investigating the aftermath versus showing you what happened in real time. I think that's what transitioned to more into a horror movie.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the show Hannibal kind of took a cue from the first Saw, because especially in the first season of Hannibal, a lot of the dead bodies you see are all posthumous. Like like rarely do you see the kill actually happening. So I'm wondering if they took a cue from Saw.
Yeah, it's very Seven-like too. Like I think Saw is comparable to Seven like that.
Well, from that perspective, it was still like a good 6 or 8 years after Seven came out, and Seven was still hot on everyone's mind at the time. So that wouldn't surprise me in the least. Or actually, no, 2004. Never mind. Basically, Seven was still hot in people's heads at that time, so it wouldn't surprise me in the least. But then you get into Saw 2, where the cat's out of the bag, everyone's loving it, and they go crazy with the blood and gore this go around. I mean, and funny enough, it may just be because I've watched a shit ton of horror, but to say the infamous syringe pit sequence still got me doing the
oh yeah. Believe me, when I cosplay it, everybody's like, why? No, why? I'm like, that's why.
that is why.
That's squirminess. That's why.
Well, I think the triumph of that sequence, apart from the fact that Shawnee Smith is just dominating her performance in the scene, is I actually going to give it to the sound editing for that sequence.
Oh yeah. Oh god. The moving of the needles, like her screaming, just everything about that scene makes you cringe.
Yeah, and just the tinkling sounds,
making them sound so delicate, but so like you're swimming in it.
Yeah, it's just so.
Yeah, everything about that scene is genius, and learning about how many needles they had to put in that pit to make that scene happen.
I'm like, how the hell did they do it where she jumped in there and she didn't actually get like stabbed to death with like a shit ton of needles? Like,
and she was 4 months pregnant too. Fun fact.
What?
Yeah, nobody knew but Darren and the costume designer. That's why she's in scrubs, because they wanted to build a costume that wouldn't show if she started showing.
Oh my god.
So so even more, and she has a death afraid of needles. So I was like, what a badass. And that's part of the reason, like, she's in 1, but like I didn't fall in love with Amanda the character as a kid until I saw 2, because she's such a badass in that movie. Like she's suffering like the rest of them. She's a pig in sheep's clothing,
Yeah. And even though she is from naked perspective in this trap again, like oh my god, why am I back here again?
Mm.
And yet she's still defending Jigsaw. She's still like saying, no, he's not, he's not a
Yeah, yeah, you can see the subtlety of like yeah, she even says that line like he's never killed anybody, and I'm like, well, you're weirdly defending the guy who's put you in a trap twice now.
exactly. So yeah.
Little
Yeah.
hints like that. I love details like that. There's a lot of polish in the movie. Like when you see when she wakes up, she does this a lot.
Mhm.
Like you're acting, but you're acting as a victim who's had the trap on your head before. So it's very like, wow, even though you're part of the game, like you're playing the victim really well.
This I would even say is the franchise's first go around with time bending in terms of uh narrative progression. Now, the brilliant thing about this one is that we think what we're seeing is happening in real time, both things
Yeah.
happening at the same time. But the big twist on this one, which I think is just chef's kiss, is that we find out everything happening with Jigsaw, with Detective Matthews, with his son, with Dina Meyer. Like we think all that's happening. No, that's all
Mhm.
happening maybe like a couple weeks later
Yeah.
afterwards.
Another
And
massive twist that was like, what?
yeah,
Oh.
this one was twists on twists because we're
Mhm.
so caught up in the fact that wait a minute, if they were way too late from the beginning, what happened to his son? And then safe
Yeah.
open.
Yeah,
And
yeah. He's in a safe place. Like he said so. And I love Jigsaw's like
he's
riddle way of talking. Like you just have to listen to him, man.
he's
She
such
even
a
like
bitch. He's such a bitch. I love it.
it even like hints at or it like jokes about it in X, which X has a lot more humor in it than I thought a Saw movie would ever have, but it's this weird dry delivery of Amanda being like, yeah, he talks in metaphors. He does that a lot. Like
Yeah.
just listen to the way he talks and you'll get hints.
Or even Amanda just going, you'll be fine. Just don't lose your head.
Just don't lose your
It's like, Amanda, just go, just go to your spot.
Go find something to do.
Go find some. But this one also ups the ante in terms of the participants in the game because yeah, like you said, they're all convicts. They're all people
Mm.
of dubious moral values. So it
Yeah.
begs to reason, if these people are as horrible as they are, what is it do you feel that makes us want to be so invested in their survival if they're horrible people?
I don't think we're invested in all of their survival, right? Because in the
Yeah.
end, one of them even becomes a weapon, you know.
Yeah.
He's coming after them with a nail bat, which I love that nail bat so much. I
Oh,
want one.
Stranger Things has now basically made nail bats like,
Right?
yeah,
It's
but
a
that's way,
classic weapon.
but that was way later. Well, I mean, there is still actually, I think the one that we were invested in is Eric Knudson's, Matthew's son. I think he's the one.
Yeah, of course. Well, he's the innocent, right? He's not a convict. He's a kid.
Yeah,
And what is he doing here? You know, it's like he's the bait.
yeah. I mean, yeah, he's a juvenile delinquent, but even then, he doesn't deserve to be in a
Mhm.
den loaded with murderers, con artists, and people who are very clearly are prime for a saw trap. But I loved there's that walking on eggshells aspect where he realizes, oh shit, I'm here because of my dad.
Yeah.
These guys better not find out
Hmm.
that and that should have been a hint about Amanda right there, is the fact that Amanda seemed very protective of him.
Yeah.
And it's like the only way she'd be protective of him if she knew and understood the stakes of him.
Yeah, he's a key part of this game. I mean, I guess you could say that they were trying to give her this sense of humanity. You know, it's like you want to root for her in the end. So it's like, well, she protected a kid even if she wasn't like they were just trying to get out of there alive.
Yeah.
So who knows what they were trying to go for with it. There's definitely a lot of like subtle not so subtle hints in the movie that she's on his side. Like
Yeah.
they zoom in on her standing in the background just kind of glaring at them all. I'm like, wow, I could be glaring at them for any reason, but it's like, dude. She mentions like, don't go in that room. If it's locked, don't go in there. All right, we're
Yeah.
going. I
And
guess we're going in there.
there's so many times when you see a person fall into a trap and you're like going, oh man, yeah, you shouldn't have. I would have figured that out. It's like, yeah, you talk big, but these people are fueled by desperation,
Yeah.
and they're gonna jump in. They're gonna if the second they see anything that resembles a means of survival, they're going to jump
Mhm.
in there.
Yeah.
And it's always so funny when you find out that the solution to save their life is something so childlike and simple,
Yeah.
like the guy going into the furnace.
Hmm.
All he had to do was, before he even touched those things, investigate the scene and see, oh, there's a valve.
Well,
I should probably
I guess we also didn't mention, which we should, is that they're all slowly dying of
of a nerve toxin.
a nerve toxin, which is cloud. You can see by the end with Addison, who shoves her
Oh
hands
yeah.
up in that
Oh
razor
yeah.
box. It's
Yeah.
like no thought process behind those eyes. She just
Oh
wants to
yeah.
get up in there, and
That's
it's
right.
just
Addison. That's right. That was her name.
Addison.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like, the nerve toxins slowly eating their brains, and it's like
Mhm.
that's got to have an effect on their judgment, which we also have never seen before in
Yes.
Saw.
Yeah. Oh, and then
Is
and you're right.
something beyond their control.
And that even explains Xavier, because even though he was already a big old blunt object in the beginning, like as it goes on, he's becoming more and more hostile and
Oh
more.
yeah, you've got the one guy who didn't care about people to begin with. Well, now he's his brain's slowly melting and he's gonna murder people.
Yeah. And I suppose if there's another character amongst that throng who I actually was kind of rooting for, and it's sad that he got bludgeoned to death, was friggin' Jonas.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually thinking straight. He actually seemed
Yeah.
like he's doing things right. It's like, just God damn it, Xavier. Now,
Yeah. So there's a couple outliers in the group that are like, okay, you guys are a little more reasonable than the others.
mhm.
The other girl character who dies makes it to the end and then kind of dies of the toxin. That
Yeah.
was her death. That was sad, and you can
Yeah.
see, well, like that's what it means. Like Amanda's like cradling her on the ground because she's dying in her arms. It's like
Mhm.
she's got some humanity to her.
Yeah, there's that idea that Amanda understands why these people are here, and
Mm.
she does actually lament, like, when someone fails, because it's like, because that's the whole idea is that surviving this is the hard part. After that, in a way, it's kind of like a principle that Fight Club talked about, the idea
Mhm.
that after they threaten the guy with the gun, and he's like saying, when he gets home, his food's going to taste way better. Like, he's going to go out there and he's going to do better because he's just tasted
Yeah.
as close as he's ever gotten to death.
Well, yeah, that's the whole principle, the whole cherish your life. It's like,
Mhm.
you've seen death.
Exactly. And if we want to get a little personal here, have you ever gotten that close?
No. No,
Really?
I guess the closest would be I almost drowned when I was a kid, which is why now I'm like terrified of suffocating.
Yeah.
But I guess at the time it wasn't the idea of I'm about to die. It's the idea of how do I get out of here? Like how do I make sure I'm okay? You don't bother yourself with the idea that I'm about to die or anything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
looking back on it, that's but I was a kid, so I was like I didn't have the I
The
guess
the existential dread that came
sure. Yeah, sure. If it
that
were to
came
happen to me
from
today kind of thing.
stepping. Yeah. I had something a little bit later on. In 2003, I got T-boned by a semi truck.
Oh, God.
And if I'd been in the passenger seat, I would have been liquid. I would have been liquid.
Yeah.
But when I had to crawl out through the windshield, and against all odds, I was, apart from just a series of very minor cuts and scrapes, nothing, like no
Wow.
injuries, no bones broken
Mhm.
whatsoever. My car bounced off the semi truck. When, based on the trajectory, actually my car should have been wrapped around the hood of that thing. And the people at the towing yard called me the blessed one, because there was like that was statistically, that should have been the end of me.
Yeah.
Right. So
Wow.
that was pretty wild. So, but that did kind of, for a time, definitely gave me a sense of like, yeah, I'm gonna try to focus on my own endeavors and not try to conform. Like, I'm gonna basically try to grab life by the balls.
Mhm.
Don't be a Pearl, be a Maxine.
Mhm. I still have to see it.
With Darren Lynn Bousman obviously doing so well directing that one, they naturally brought him back to direct Saw 3,
Yeah.
which came out, and I get once again another year later.
Mhm.
And this time around, he was in full Saw mode, and this is the epic conclusion of the Amanda Young saga. And also introduces us one of the most hilariously maligned characters in the franchise, one to which a more seasoned YouTuber has given him the affectionate yet frustrated moniker of slow ass motherfucking Jeff.
Fucking Jeff. Hey man, he's got to take the entire movie to get through his. He's on a time frame here.
Yeah, although I mean, prior to Saw 10, this was actually the one with the longest runtime. For the longest time, it was like a good solid
because of
2
Jeff.
hours. Yeah. Oh yeah, all because of Jeff just dragging.
All because of that guy.
I mean, I know he's played by Angus McFadden, who's a wonderful character actor, but and I could watch that guy all day, but not like this. People's lives are on the line, dude.
That's true. I do believe that as far as action outside of the traps go, I believe that Saw 3 lacks a little bit compared to what we just saw in 2, where there was stuff going on and then more stuff going on at the same time. I definitely believe it took a chill pill.
Yeah, in some respects, I would say Jeff is comedically frustrating as a character. And I do have to thank Dead Meat for this, because now I actually have great entertainment in watching Saw 3 because of that, where I'm like, fucking hell, Jeff.
Goes Jeff again, just taking his sweet time.
Yeah, just God damn it, Jeff. But I will say everything involving the focus with Jigsaw, with Amanda, and actually with Lynn, just that whole side of the story, that's really where, to me, the meat of how good basically the best aspects of the movie are all there. Principally, especially, I gotta say this, and I'm assuming it's because of my time watching Nip Tuck, but I can watch surgery scenes like they're nothing now. That open brain surgery scene is probably
rough.
It's rough, and I definitely understand why people would wince away from it. Me, I was spending more time going, huh.
Fascinating. Oh, that's how you could do that.
That's it. Well, I never knew that. I always knew about cranial bone saws, and I always knew that, I never realized that for all intents and purposes, to open the brain, you had to basically create like what looks like a battery hatch on a friggin' alarm clock.
Oh yeah. I think the most brutal aspect of it was the fact that she's a dang power drill to get in there, and it's like it had to be a little crude because they don't have hospital tools, so they had to make do with what they had. So it was a lot more crude in the drilling. That's again the sounds of the movie were just like, oh god, I could feel it in the back of my own head. Like
yeah, there is that. Well, though I have heard about this. Apparently the brain itself does not feel pain, from what I've understood. I mean, again, anyone who's listening who's a medical expert, please definitely correct us on this. But I've heard that there's no pain centers in the brain, so they can't feel anything while he's in there. And I would legit love to hear any experts on their opinion on the way they portrayed brain surgery in this one. I love that we went straight to that moment.
All right, well, we have to immediately talk about what's the gnarliest part of the Saw movie.
I mean, though, that being said, that is to me, and I know a lot of people who can't stand watching bones broken. That to them is not the gnarliest part. The gnarliest part is the rack or whatever. The rack. That thing.
I do think Saw 3 has, in my opinion, the most memorable traps all in one place. Because usually it's like all the other ones, like everybody has their favorite trap. My favorite trap's the angel trap.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about it, but Dina Meyer had for all 3 of those movies had this consistent character.
Yeah.
Who, for all intents and purposes, had she gone on, could have been like the hero, like the virtuous side character, like the heroine character.
Yeah, it's definitely aiming to be, which her death from the angel trap, as well as all the other characters who died in this movie, kind of really implied this was supposed to be the last one.
Yeah, there's definitely that vibe that they probably didn't think it was supposed to survive past this.
No.
Yeah. And of course, the major thing that's also of note in this is that, of course, at the end of Saw 2, we find out that Amanda is the apprentice and that she's going to continue on Jigsaw's work afterwards. But at the start of Saw 3, we discover that, what am I doing? Give us a synopsis of Saw 3.
All right. So Saw 3 takes place, I want to say like a year later, would you say? Something like that.
Something like that.
Which
Probably, yeah.
We'll get into how there's a plot hole there with how is Jigsaw still alive when he wasn't even supposed to be surviving the past 3 months or whatever X said.
Yeah.
So she's been working with Jigsaw, learning how to build traps so she could take over after he's gone. The task he's given her is we're gonna find me a surgeon who can do brain surgery on me to help alleviate, the headaches, and I'll hopefully prolong my life. This is what he tells her. So her job is to go out and kidnap Lynn, who is a surgeon who is married to Jeff, but their marriage is
as we discover,
right. Amanda doesn't know this
Yeah.
when she kidnaps her. Amanda, there's the whole twist of this one is who knows what. So Amanda's just been told kidnap the surgeon to have her play a game where she has to save my life with a surgery while Jeff, her husband, is going through his own trial at the same time. And if you can keep me alive until Jeff gets here, I'll let you go. And that's supposed to be Lynn's game.
Yeah.
So,
or at least that's what we think is
that's what we and Amanda thinks.
Yeah, we think that the whole game is involving helping a grieving father get over his woes by putting him in positions where he can forgive anyone who was involved with the death of his son, by putting him in scenarios where their lives are in Jeff's hands. And his hands are willing, but his feet are weak.
Yeah, he's got some slow feet.
I mean, all right, I will give it this. In the scenes where Jeff is being confronted with these, I mean, they are trying to address the fact that this is a hell of a conflict for him. You're basically asking him to forgive the people who failed to give him.
So for context, his son was killed by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
And then the judge was lenient on the driver.
Yeah, and there was an eyewitness who did nothing. Basically, I don't even think she even showed up to the case. And because there was no credible eyewitness, that's why the sentence was lenient. All of this kind of fuels Jeff's anger, and so much so that he's neglectful of his still living daughter.
Yeah, which, depending on which ending we go with, that gets really dark with how Jigsaw handled that.
Yeah.
Talk about innocent victims over here.
Telling me. Though later on, don't we find out that I think she does get rescued?
Yes, that's where this like retroactive changing of the script starts to really bug me, is in Saw 3. There's a lot of that in this one.
Oh yeah. So all the time this is happening, we're wondering why he is, fixating so hard on Jeff. What's so special about him? I got to give it this though, with the character Lynn. The first time we meet her, she's in bed with another man.
Yeah.
And we've established that she's a depressive. She's taking antidepressants. And she's leaving this guy, and he's actually asking her for a divorce. And the way it's scripted, yeah, exactly. The way it's scripted, it sounds like he's asking for a divorce from her. And unfortunately, the dialogue is simple and it's just direct.
Yeah.
It's so simple that it makes us think that it's one thing, but then you come to the realization down the line that Lynn is the wife of Jeff, and that their marriage is on the rocks because he himself, and all comes together. It's for me, it was a very rewarding watch. Like, the investment of time I had to sit down and watch it was very rewarding. It's just how comedically inept Jeff is as a character that just gave it a sense of comedy, which I don't know that they were intending.
No, I don't think so. It was supposed to be this, like, he's having such a hesitant time dealing with each of these people having a hand in his son's death. Like, I get what they were going for, especially when it's like, you got to burn your son's stuff, and it's like, it's just stuff, just burn it.
Yeah,
hurry up.
This is actually where we can also talk about this. I love how especially when it's individual traps. I always love how the writers theme the traps based on the victim's sins.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like the first woman who's getting doused with cold water,
Yeah.
she's being punished because she sat idly by. She froze
He
basically and
froze.
did
Yeah.
nothing.
Hmm.
So now, she's literally gonna, and that's her sin. And he's expecting Jeff to forgive that. Otherwise, she's gonna actually literally get frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which I was like, that's pretty freaking clever. And we see a
Yeah.
lot of those
I
throughout the
think
run of the.
I think this one they actually started delving a lot more into the fact that Jigsaw is building a religion. You see it a lot when you see where Amanda's bed is on the wall. There's a lot of religion, like various religious symbols, and it's all supposed to be bits and pieces of different religions that he believes in that built his cult, so to speak. So it's very fitting that they were starting to really push for like the religious view here.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is an interesting notion to the idea that maybe Jigsaw is fully aware that of the holes in his logic, but ultimately it's the idea that if he's able to have people survive these incidences, like these people will be converted to this way of thinking that adheres
Mhm.
to. So there's a level of evangelical attitudes
Yeah,
the way he does
like
things.
his pig friends are all disciples. Like
Hmm.
it's all pretty structural to like a cult.
And that's something to think about. What is the pig? The like why a pig?
So they explain it, I think, in Jigsaw maybe. There's different meanings. One being, pig is a derogatory name for a cop, and there's a whole thing about corrupt cops in Saw, especially Spiral.
Oh, especially Spiral.
Especially that, and they changed the design to be super fucking weird with that pig. But they really delved into the pig aspect in Spiral. I think the main reason that's his symbol, I don't remember which sequel they talk about, is we learn in 3 that John had a son, or he was going to have a son, and he was killed prematurely because of Amanda and her junkie boyfriend's actions.
Well, I think that comes out. I want to say that comes out in 4 or 5. I
I think
want
they delve more into it.
Yeah.
She reads the
Yeah,
note in 3
3.
that was from Hoffman, that like blackmail letter, and that's what got her
Yeah.
like super upset. That letter was him saying, if you don't kill Lynn, I'm gonna tell John that you had a hand in his son's death.
But by this point, we don't know Hoffman. I think at this point we don't even know Hoffman. So when she reads that letter, you think it's something that Kramer said to her that she.
Right. Which
Yeah,
it could have been originally, and then they changed it. We have no
yeah.
idea what it originally was supposed to say.
Which leads us to the shocking aspect of this is the fact that we find out that Amanda has, up to this point, has been sabotaging traps
Yeah,
to make them unwinnable,
right.
and it leads to wonder what do you think it was that motivated Amanda to do that?
Uh, well, let me finish the first thought I was I
Yeah, finish.
was I
Yeah,
was
finish.
getting to. His son was supposed to be born the year of the pig.
Oh,
So they mentioned at some point, I think in Jigsaw, that John really believed in the Zodiac. So that was kind of why the pig became his symbol.
yeah. If I remember correctly, I want to say, yeah, I think it was in Saw 4. I think when Jill Tuck was introduced, I even think she talked about it.
Yeah, right. The whole
And
cherish your life thing was brought up as well.
yeah, actually, in Saw 3, during the brain surgery, we see a flash of a woman that John's with, and that's where we get the
Hmm.
first real hint uh of Jill Tuck. We don't know who she
Yeah,
is. We just know that obviously this is someone Kramer really gave a shit about.
right. Which in a
Yeah.
convoluted way makes Amanda jealous. So my logic to why she was sabotaging traps, I believe that she had a complex about her, thinking that she's the only one who's worthy of a second chance. Like she
Mhm.
survived her trap. These people don't deserve a second chance. And that was the big separation between her and John. He believed everybody deserves a second chance, no matter how vile you are, and she did not
Yeah.
believe that. I think some of the deaths, like the detectives, were partly because she was protecting John. Because
Yeah.
she's like, this bitch just keeps coming after John, and I need her out of my life. So I think that's why her trap was set like that. But these people who she didn't know, I just think she was being very hateful.
Like, yeah, very spiteful. Well, and again, I'm always timid to like allude to something later on, obviously with Saw 10, but actually we could even at this point possibly even speculate on what might happen in Saw 11,
Hmm.
like when that comes out. But there might even be the idea, because I've heard a rumor that Cecilia may come back to haunt them in
Yeah, oh,
Saw.
yeah. Oh yeah, she's not done.
Yeah, and there's that very real possibility that she's going to be like living proof that Jigsaw's philosophy doesn't work.
Mm.
And if she runs into Amanda again, and Cecilia is, let's face it, she's going to be just as ruthless and as
Oh,
poisonous.
dude, she was insane.
Yeah, I there's a little part of me that's there's going to be an aspect of Amanda after that it's going to be left disillusioned
Mm.
to it, and maybe that's going to imbue in her a sense of, you know what, I am the judgment, I am the person
Yeah.
who
Because there has to be a point, I would say, between X and 3 where she snaps, because she's definitely a different person in X, where she's like she still has her morals like kind of not so
yeah,
twisted. She feels bad for Gabriella because of the drugs.
absolutely,
She has a connection to them, and she looks scared most of X. You know, she doesn't she's doing what she's told, but she's kind of doing it in this like militant robotic way where she's trying to disassociate, I think.
yeah,
And
yeah,
whereas in 3, she's lost all of her morals.
yeah, and I'm pretty damn well positive, especially when we find out what's really in that letter. I think there's a level of there's a well, actually no, scratch that. Prior to we seeing that letter, or prior to finding out who actually did write that letter and what that letter actually was, there is that's in a way it's kind of like finding out, like a religious fanatic finding out that their god or that the object of their worship is false.
Yeah.
And there's that despair that the follower feels, where they feel like, I don't know what to think anymore.
Right.
I just, everything's a lie, everything is, it's
Yeah.
in a way
It's part of her rant at the end before she gets shot. She's turning against him
Mhm.
and says things that she would never say to him.
Yeah, it's, and in a way it's kind of like in the mentality of an addict, it's her version of a relapse.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if you have, after Saw X, did you go back and watch Saw 3 again recently?
I watched them all before X, so I had just
Yeah.
recently seen it.
I discovered after watching X, I went back to watch Saw 3, and it's actually harder to watch now
Yeah. It's
because,
definitely different.
yeah, it definitely rings different to it, and I kind of applauded for that. I can't tell you how, but it definitely does ring very, very true.
Well,
It's
I
one
know a
of
lot of people were saying the connection between John and Amanda and X like brought tears to their eyes just because you've never seen them really be so close, I suppose. And
yeah,
that was a relationship that was kind of like it was in a gap where it was like between 2 and 3. You don't get to see them interact at all really in 2 until the end. And then in
yeah,
3, for the first time, the actors are like in the same room with each other the entire movie.
precisely. And that must have been wonderfully freeing in and of itself to get a chance to really kind of build this bond between
Hmm.
the two of them. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing people don't really think about when it comes to making movies, is that you are one hardship with making a movie is that you are pretty much slave to the production schedule. You have absolutely no idea how long you're going to spend with certain actors, and there's an
Mhm.
expectation to perform with this person as if you've known them for whatever amount of time the script dictates.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing when two actors can come together and really show that they have exquisite chemistry and be able to sell the performance as at the level that it needs to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, even the first time I watched Saw 3, I don't know what it, I mean, I suppose I'll just have to ask them when when I inevitably meet them, but you like how hard it was for them to kind of develop that chemistry. I mean, did they do it? Were they able to build it up throughout the first three movies, or that's a big question.
I think it all happened, like, especially you're talking John and Amanda. I know they talked about how behind the scenes they would just go for walks in Toronto and they would talk like philosophy, like the two characters would do. So
Hmm.
they tried to quickly build this relationship while they were filming, which you kind of have to do sometimes.
Absolutely, and it in this movie, since like you said, because this is the first time we actually see them together, it had to ring, it had to work for us to really buy into this connection, because we find out the big twist in this one. While yeah, it's a big twist that Lynn is the wife of Jeff. The big twist is that none of this was their game. The entire
Right.
time it was Amanda's game.
Right.
Because Jigsaw was fully aware that Amanda was sabotaging traps and that this was his final test to see if Amanda truly was worthy.
Yeah. Can you save a life?
Yeah, do you have the capacity to actually, even more so, in a way, it's the idea, it echoed Jeff, where he was testing Jeff's capacity to forgive.
Mhm.
It's like, well, what about you, Amanda? Do you have the capacity to forgive?
Right.
Because clearly not. Clearly.
Yeah, and the reason why she couldn't in that sense now is muddled because later you see the letters from Hoffman and it looks like a blackmail letter where it's
Yeah.
like you have to kill Lynn or I'm gonna tell on you. So now it's like, well, did she do it because of her jealousy and her rage and all of her problems? Because we find out she's also a self-harmer, which
Mhm.
is a whole nother realm of like why she
Yeah.
influences the fan base that she does. She has a lot of girls who are self-harmers who now like look up to her, and it's like she researched that kind of mental disorder in order to play the character like that, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
But now it's a question of, did she kill Lynn because of all those problems, or is it because she was simply being blackmailed? Because you see she's crying when she shoots her, like she knows this is not what she's supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
But of course she had no idea it was going to end in her own death.
Yeah. There is the very real possibility that she's just a mess. Like
Yeah,
she's
of course.
so many different emotions coming
Mhm.
together all at once. And this is why I'm really looking forward to Saw 11. And I really do hope that we kind of get into the idea that whatever, however we leave it at the end of that one, that it could leave Amanda so disillusioned
Yeah.
about
You already
everything.
start to see kind of some of it in X. I'm like, she does have more like deeply seated mental issues from, everything that's happened to her.
Precisely. Yeah. And I will say it is such a hard watch after 10. Saw 3 now
Mhm.
is such a really hard watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, doing, if you're a Doctor Who fan, the whole saga of River Song, seeing how it ends, and then you go back to that very first time, and it's like, oh my God, it's so hard
Right.
now.
Which is why I'm glad there's now another installment between 10 and 3, so it doesn't just jump right from that like heartwarming ending of 10 into the tragedy that is 3. It's like, well, there's got to be something in between.
Yeah. So, all right. Now, we have hit that point now. We have just kind of really gone in thorough depth with the first 3. So I think for funsies, let's go ahead and I think we have enough to accommodate a top 3. Let's go ahead and let's exchange our top 3 saw traps for the first 3 movies.
Okay.
Hmm.
My number 1 is going to be the Angel Trap.
Ah,
That's always just because even before I knew it was called, I was like, that's the Ripper Trap. Oh my God. Like just,
yeah.
oh, you feel it. Like, ah.
Yeah, I think it's, well, from what I understand, I think it's based on the Nordic Valkyrie. I think that
Yeah.
was the idea of it. Actually, I think it was based on a Viking torture device.
Oh, that makes sense. A lot of the early saw traps were
Yeah,
very much so.
even down to the point of that when it explodes looking like wings.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they
Afterwards.
gave that name, which is kind of cool if you want to delve into the stupid games that were made. The
Yeah.
dumb Saw games.
Oh,
There is like sketch work and artwork of the Saw of the Angel Trap in the first Saw game.
I have not played those, and everyone was like saying the games aren't worth a damn, and I'm just like, well, that's a
The first
shame.
one is. The first one is.
The first one's
But
pretty good.
it's good, but the fact that you have to play it on an Xbox and it's expensive as hell because Twitch streamers made it so expensive, like it's up to you whether it's worth it, but I just like having them as a piece of media.
That's kind of like me for the longest time when I held on to 24 the game, where I was like, yeah, the game's glitchy as fuck, but it actually serves as a great like sub season between 2 and 3.
That's
So
true.
it's like,
That's true.
yeah, yeah, that's
Um, two of the traps I've got to say because it's iconic and because of my connection to it as a cosplayer, the reverse bear trap holds a place in my heart. It was the first time you get to see my hero. It's the first it was on the first poster, so it's like the iconic Saw trap. I got to build it and see how it works. It's just, I love that trap so much.
Mhm.
It's basic, it's simple, it was made out of Home Depot parts, and I love it.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people do the reverse bear trap. Yours, the craftsmanship on that is just, if I didn't know better, like from outside looking in, it looks like it was made from like the parts, like the actual parts.
I tried to make it as many real parts as I could.
Yeah, you succeed.
Appreciate that.
No problem. All right.
And then I think for a third trap, I don't know, man. Like, I think the needle pit just sticks out in people's heads so much. I think you have to put that in the top three.
It's funny because you said sticks out.
Yeah.
Ah, oh, yeah. I mean, realistically, I'll definitely, my list would kind of parallel that for similar reasons. I mean, the reverse bear trap is an icon in and of itself. I mean, right next to Billy the Puppet and the full pig mask and Rove's regalia, that bear trap just, I think a lot of it really is just because it tapped into people's imaginations about, and actually for the longest time until Saw 7, we had to still imagine what it would look like if that trap actually got to be seen to its fruition, because we'd only seen it like explode through a
Yeah, and then they made like a second version of it that wasn't as cool for Hoffman, and
but we still got to see it work.
yeah.
Yeah, well, actually,
dumbest character.
it's not that Hoffman's dumb; he's just an asshole.
No, I mean Jill.
Oh, yeah. Again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to.
Yeah.
Other ones I think that, so for me, I guess you could say those are my top three as well, but I'd say the three that I also think merit discussion, I would definitely say the rack from Saw 3. Yeah, just because
so brutal.
Yeah, well, and beyond that, I think a lot of it is also the dramatic weight of the fact that it'd be one thing if this guy was like a neglectful ass or just someone who didn't give a shit, but to find out that this guy was actually a good person and it was pure and simple an accident. It just was this guy didn't like the fact that this happened, and this accident wrecked his life. He still saw, even if he didn't get the sentence that Jeff wanted, he still saw jail time.
Yeah.
He still regrets it. This is the rare instance where someone commits a crime, actually gets thrown in jail, and actually is legitimately remorseful for what he did. Yeah, it's such a rare thing, but
and it delves so much into the fact that Jeff deserves to be tested because he has such a hard time forgiving.
Yeah.
Even if that is all the case.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing Jeff just didn't understand is that this guy's already torturing himself because of what he did. In a way, the guy, we don't really get a chance to really get to talk to the guy, but there's always that sense that because as a person who obviously regrets it, he himself probably thinks, I got lucky that things fell the way they did, because there are times where this happens to people and they don't see the light of day afterwards. But he probably thinks to himself, like going, yeah, I'm lucky that I got out, but did I get my punishment? Did I get my just punishment?
Right.
For what I did? This guy's obviously not like Victor Salva, who got off on a wrist slap, even though that guy got off on other things so many times. Fuck that guy. Yeah, you're never gonna. Yeah, as I say to everybody, never expect me to spotlight Jeepers Creepers. I never will.
Oh my god.
Fuck that guy. No, don't fuck that guy.
No.
So the rack is definitely one of them.
That's definitely a good one.
Another one that works for me, just in terms of, actually, there's a level of dark comedy to it, is the blade box. Where where she puts her hands in there.
That's the one where everybody's screaming at her, what the hell are you doing?
Well, and I remember someone actually deconstructed the trap to reveal that there are other ways that you could have done this, and actually, like, you could have actually just used one hand to kind of poke up the thing and then fit your other hand up to, but then someone else pointed out that if she actually took the time to scrutinize the box,
it was on top of it, wasn't it? Like a tape.
Apparently there was an easier way to open the box, and if she actually took the time to, actually, that was something that in Saw 2 I didn't know. Maybe you spotted it in Jigsaw's hints. He said your answer is over the rainbow. And I was like looking for a rainbow and I didn't see one.
All the numbers on the back of their neck was different colors.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Well,
Which
I just
if,
fucked that up too when you said like it's at the back of your mind.
yeah, so I guess if you go with like the colors of the rainbow, I guess it goes in order. So it was telling the order of the numbers on the back of their necks,
Okay.
which they didn't delve into it a lot. I have a lot of people when I do that needle cosplay, they're like, "But do you have a number on the back of your neck?" I'm like, "Actually, there is none on Amanda's because there's I think 7 colors in the rainbow and there were 8 of them." So
Mhm.
she didn't have one.
Yeah. It's a good thing that one guy who got his head blown off with the gun and the get the thing. It's a good thing that bullet trajectory
Yeah.
didn't wreck the number on the back of his.
Yeah, really. And it fell so perfectly. Yeah, all of that was just so coincidental.
Yeah, just pure coincidence. Okay, so where am I? I'm at 2. Yeah, I think I'm at 2. Uh, one, I'm just gonna bank on pure phantom pain inducement. I'm actually gonna think about the razor wire
I was
maze.
just gonna say that's my honorable mention because
Yeah,
when it was just Saw 1, I couldn't stop thinking about that razor room.
just thinking about the fact that yeah, this guy's basically naked and he's also a very rotund individual.
Hmm.
So you have to take into account his dimensions,
Yeah.
in order
Yeah,
to
yeah.
navigate
Moving
through it.
through razor wire. And I think the fact that what we were saying was this is an aftermath shot of it, you just get a shot of a rotting body laying in a bunch of razor wire, and I'm like,
Yeah, just
oh
like
God, that room's
yeah,
gotta reek.
it's got a yeah. That's oh man, that's another we got to praise about the Saw franchise as a whole. They do
Mhm.
such a great job selling how disgusting.
The world is nasty. Like it's
Yeah,
supposed to be New York. Fuck New York. It looks so gross in this
yeah,
movie. It's
yeah. We just call it.
everything's green and yellow.
Yeah, they never actually specify what city this is in. I mean, we just all jokingly call it Cityton. Just
Cityton. Yeah. I think
yeah,
it's
the only
supposed to be New York, even though it's in Toronto, because it's a very
yeah.
similar looking city.
Yeah, I think like the only time the franchise has ever been specific as to where it is Saw X,
Yeah,
where they just and even then they just say
that's true.
Mexico.
Yeah,
Even though
somewhere Mexico.
yeah, they just say somewhere in Mexico. They don't specify where in Mexico. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the part that's actually kind of fun. But
Probably
then
because they don't want to bash any specific city. They don't want to be like, oh, this city's known for shady practices. It's like, oh, don't say anything.
all right, so yeah, the razor wire maze is would definitely be for me. But what would you say was the most impactful death? Like your favorite death in terms like the one that impacted you the most in each movie?
Um, I think as far as you don't see it on screen, but Adam's death in the first one, you definitely see
Yeah.
him later. Mainly because that key in the beginning, you had no idea that they were going to even bring. I forgot all about it by the end of the movie.
You barely even see that a key is even on there. You just see
It's
a
just a
light,
light.
just a light. You're like, what was that? And it's like,
Goes
what?
down the drain. Totally forgot about it. By the way, the key's in the bathtub,
And it's like,
and
oh,
you know he's dead. You just and
yeah,
that's such a slow, painful. Well, it gets
that's a
cut short, but
big old fuck you, man. That's a big fuck you. But I think by that point, Adam has been revealed as a very morally questionable character.
oh,
So
sure, sure.
yeah, at least the thing you can say for Dr. Gordon is that he's someone who very clearly regrets his misdeeds and his mistakes. And
Sure.
I think he, I think he did, kind of. Well, actually, no. Let's go back to that. Do we actually believe he actually did anything with his students? Because there's that scene where he's like, I can't do this. Did he actually? Do you think he actually did anything?
No, I mean that's one of those things that's like up for interpretation, I think.
I like to think that he was tempted. I'm gonna say he was tempted because a guy who doesn't freak out that bad over the welfare of his family, if he doesn't, I think he was at the precipice where he was about to, but I think no, he didn't pull out literally, um, but I think he saw it like right when he was at the precipice. He was like, no, I can't do this.
Right. I
Yeah,
think that's fair.
yeah. So I'd like to think higher of Dr. Ford. So, all right. All right for Saw 2? What would you say was the most impactful?
I think Obi's death is the one where I was like, because I don't know, death by fire.
Yeah.
It's so slow and painful. And you get to see his roasty toasty head at the very end.
Hmm.
I think that's a pretty good,
Yeah.
like, stuck in your head kind of death.
I think
And, like, the trap is whatever, but
it's also the
yeah.
one that where I think it's one of the earliest examples of where we as the audience have to learn. Yeah, we need to pay attention to every goddamn thing Jigsaw is saying
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he told you exactly what you needed to do to survive this, and you didn't listen.
I think that's at the point where people are like, why don't people just listen to him more?
Yeah.
Just listen. Like you guys, and that's another question is why in Saw 2 does nobody seem to know who Jigsaw is already?
Hmm.
Like he's been in the news for doing this very thing.
Well, they say in the news who he is, but I'm pretty sure the news
Mhm.
doesn't get into vivid detail about his patterns, and I'm pretty sure it's police evidence, so they can't play the recordings of
I
anything like that.
suppose, yeah, I guess so. It's just the
Yeah,
idea of, oh, I woke up in a trap. Well, doesn't this sound familiar?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'll say Obi's death for the second one because you get to see it. You know, some of their deaths, like, you know, Addison's and stuff, like, you know, she died, but you don't really see it.
Mm,
And then for three, it's gonna be Amanda,
yeah.
just because of my connection to her.
Hmm. Absolutely. I get that. Let's see. For I myself, most impactful. Actually, for the first one, I'd say Detective Singh,
Mm,
principally because that one, first off, masterful use of your surroundings to create a
hmm.
trap, basically using spider webs as a nice way to hide your
Yeah,
monofilament
yeah,
uh, triggered shotgun trap. I mean that. I think that was
that's
the first
true.
one. Yeah, I think for me that was like the first for the very first movie. That was the first real indicator to me of how legitimately clever Jigsaw is, and the fact that of how he engineers his traps. Though it, there's a little argument that could be made. It's like, oh yeah, that whole "I don't kill people" thing is like going. That's a then again, that's a security.
Well, I was gonna
That's
say he does have a lot of security too. There were
yeah,
cops who definitely got their legs broken just walking into the meat plant, just
yeah.
because he needs security.
I would say so.
That's why he has a blade on his arm in the first one. It's like self-defense. If you're gonna come after him, he has a right to defend himself, and in his mind.
Yeah. All right. So moving into Saw 2. Um, you know what? I have to give it to the filmmakers just in terms of just giving the audience what you want in as far as who you want to see get it, but also the way they get it. Xavier's death in Saw 2.
Mhm.
This is the guy who, as the movie goes on, is kind of like a big old freight train. And you see this
Yep.
guy get so hardcore that he's actually willing to carve his own skin off the back of his
Oh
neck.
yeah. Yep.
At that point, you're just going, this guy's unstoppable. You know, this
Yeah.
guy, it's like, what is going to stop this guy? So it really was a nice fuck you moment or fuck yeah moment when
That's
Eric,
true.
where Daniel is able to, and even better, it's in the same shit bathroom. So
Hmm.
he actually grabs that saw, that pre-existing saw, and just slashes his throat with it. And I was like, that was a nice
Uh,
punch in the air moment right there, and a nice triumph for Matthew as a character.
True,
He
that's very
able to
true.
survive that.
Somebody who you thought was dead, by the way, because he was very much dead a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got
Yeah,
up and beat the shit out of him.
yeah. And as for Saw 3, well, again, that poor guy on the rack. I think the thing is just the
Mhm.
biggest insult to injury is just the fact that you have Jeff while he's like pretty well his fate's well, so Jeff like does like I forgive you. I was like fuck you, Jeff.
Yeah.
But
No.
no, actually the real one I'd say is the most impactful is Lynn's herself,
Yeah.
because much like how Amanda couldn't forgive her and pulled the trigger on her or like that, the fact that Jeff, because of his own stupidity, couldn't just let Jigsaw go.
Right. He had the ability
Yeah,
to
slashes it,
save his wife, and she was saying, "Don't do it.
quits. And
Stop."
so even with everything that he went through and the lessons that were very blatantly being taught to him,
Hmm.
he
Forgive,
still,
forgive, forgive. She says,
much
"I
like
forgive
Amanda,
you," and then he kills him.
yeah, and much like Amanda, never did not learn the lesson, and as
Yeah.
a result, somebody actually that's kind of a nice parallel. Both of them did not learn their lesson, and because of that,
Hmm.
someone they cared about died.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild because you can easily surmise had Amanda not pulled the trigger, Jeff very clearly would not have flown
Yeah.
off the handle and killed
Mhm.
Jigsaw.
Jeff. Why is Jeff killing everybody I love in this franchise? Jeff?
He's
Of all the
killing your,
people?
he's killing Jigsaw, he's killing Amanda, he's killing your time, you know.
my precious time, Jeff. The biggest villain of the Saw franchise, Jeff.
And I do know that was like one of the fans like openly saying like that was one of the biggest missteps was of all people Jeff killing John Kramer.
Yeah, why?
You know, it's like it's again, it's like I don't think ever in life I don't think anyone ever wants to be killed by someone named Jeff. You know, to quote Nadja from What We Do in the Shadows, it's like it is like a weak ejaculation. Jeff.
That's a perfect description of the character.
Oh my God, you're right.
Weak.
A weak ejaculation. Yeah.
Just slow and disappointing.
You get the result, but no pleasure.
Man, that's a bummer. I hadn't thought about that. Like Jeff killed all the best characters in the Saw franchise.
Oh my God, that's depressing. I can't even take solace that it's Angus McFadden either. I can't even take solace in that either. Wow. So on that somber note,
now we're all depressed.
Now we're all depressed. Yeah, that was our first episode spotlighting Saws 1 through 3. So from this edition, go ahead and give your socials. Tell everyone where they can find you.
I am on Instagram as AZ Amanda Young. I'm on TikTok also as AZ Amanda Young if you want to see my cosplays, and I'm also on YouTube as Lady White Rabbit.
All right. Oh, yeah, I did not know you had a YouTube. I will follow you there. All right. Well, for everyone else, yeah, definitely leave feedback on the podcast. We are now we're able to get onto Apple Podcasts now that I figured out how to fix that problem. So definitely leave feedback. That does great to help promote the podcast. And for everyone else, if you're interested in, actually, stay tuned. Naturally, we next we'll be tackling Saws 4 through 6. And if you're interested in delving deep into the dark bowels of human imagination, ask yourself the very simple question: what's in the podcast?